That protector part for me goes, there is no chance, Em, I'm not letting you go off that cliff. Like, you might die. He's like, run. Everyone's cheering, go, go, go. I get off the edge, and then my radio drops, and I can't hear a thing.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to a Road Less Doubtful podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing the beautiful Emily Catlin. She is a Pilates instructor, a counseling therapist, an adventure enthusiast. She loves paragliding, skateboarding, doing triathlons, anything adventure, you name it, she wants to give it a go. So her and I actually connected through paragliding and through social media. We have not met in person, but that mutual love of adventure and exploring what makes us us through that adventure and stepping outside of our comfort zones while doing that is what I thought was important for us to bring to you in a conversation. So we have these conversations all the time on voice messages, and I thought it was something that you guys would resonate with and enjoy listening to. So today we speak about social anxiety, being okay with not knowing things, and then stepping outside of your comfort zone, and how we both use adventure to learn those lessons, navigate through them, and then what we find on the other side, which is that joy and that hope and more connection with others, but more importantly, more connection with ourselves. So I do think you will love this conversation. So stay tuned as we fly into having a chat with the beautiful Emily Catlin. All right, welcome, Emily. Thank you for coming on today.
Hey, Em, so good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. What a good name. Hey?
Yeah.
Emily's just a really good name.
To Emily, how good.
Yeah. I feel like we have so much in common. We have never met, actually physically met, and we connected over social media. And what seems to keep happening is we keep finding this common ground on all of these little things, and then our perspectives, while they can be slightly different, seem to be very aligned or very similar in the same token. So when I first came across you, it was because I had just started paragliding, and so through SEQ, you had, I don't know what had happened, but you had put up a post, and the way you had written about your experience of paragliding, it was just so beautifully written. And I was like, oh, that's kind of how I felt. I loved the way you see, like the lens that you see things through. And it was kind of really inspiring just reading your caption. And so then I started following you from there. Little did I know your dad was actually helping out in the school. I didn't know any of that until after, and until I actually went in and did my formal pilot's license. So I love firstly that that's how small the world is.
It's crazy. It's so small.
It's so small and so cool. But I want you to start with telling people your experience with paragliding and why you got into it, because people have heard a little bit, if they followed along for me, why I decided to, take that first step of flying. But I'd love your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Em. And, it's funny because I followed you on social media because I initially connected with you and your page around you stepping out and being super brave on your social media. And for me, that was so scary. And a couple of days later, I'm talking to my dad, and my dad's like, we just had this awesome girl coming who's going to do the course with us called Emily. She's so nice. And I go, hang on, Dad, Emily. And then we connected the dots, and it was you. So a bit about my paragliding journey. I am absolutely terrified of heights. Heights have been the scariest thing for me my whole life. And I've actually randomly been so afraid to tell people about that because I felt, I guess, embarrassed that I was a bit of a baby because I was scared of heights.
Well, I'm afraid of heights too, if that helps. So I can relate to you on that.
Another thing in common. And it's like, as you can appreciate, thinking about being up in the air with a paper bag is the scariest thing. And my dad has been trying to convince me to fly for the better part of 6 to 8 years. And every time I say, no, Dad, there's absolutely no chance. And the only reason I ended up doing it was New Year's Eve 2 years ago. I'm sitting at dinner with my dad and my husband, and Dad goes, "Oh, you know, your sister's thinking about doing the paragliding course with me." And in my head, I'm thinking, these two get to spend 9 whole days together. 9 whole days. Now, in our adult life, spending 9 days with your parents, I don't know about you, Em, but for me is unheard of. It's been 15 years since we've spent even more than a night together. And in my head, I thought, selfishly, this is my opportunity to spend 9 days with my dad and sister, learn the course, not flying. Don't need to tell them that part yet. But I'll at least do the course and be around and have this sort of experience that we get to share together in the learning process. And I get there and I'm learning the content, and we're doing our ground handling on the ground. For those of you that already know or don't know, ground handling is when you're playing with your big wing on the sand. It's kind of like you're dancing with your wing. That, to me, so much fun. Taking it off the ground, no fun. So little did my dad know that I wasn't going to fly. But then it came to about the 3rd day when you actually get to walk off the cliff. And the night before, I'm not sure of your experience, Em, but for me, I literally could not sleep. And I woke up with that disgusting feeling of, I'm so tired. How am I going to do this? I'm not going to do this. Maybe I will. I'm not sure. So I like to talk about myself in parts. So there is a part of me that, and it comes from parts, internal systems theory. And so for me, I have a part that's our protector part. And that protector part for me goes, there is no chance, Em, I'm not letting you go off that cliff. Like, you might die. And for someone that's lived with a lot of anxiety, our brains go to a place of extremes a lot of the time. So it's raining, there could be a tsunami, you know. So for me, flying, death, like that part of me truly believes that there's a chance that I am going to die. So it got to the morning of flying, and we're on the top of the hill, and I'm just so shaken up by nerves, thinking that part of me doesn't want me to fly. But the other part of me goes, Em, if you do this, if you're actually able to do this, you have the opportunity to connect to your dad and your sister over a sport for the rest of your life. Do you want to miss out on that experience? And when the guy in my course said to me, his name's V, he's super cool, he's an awesome pilot. By now, I haven't caught up to his level at all. He's amazing. He stood there, and he must have seen that in me. He must have seen that absolute fear, that terrified feeling. And he walked up to me and he said this. He's like, Em, you're going first today. And everything inside me just went, I'm not, I can't. He's like, Em, you're going first, like super serious. And I just went, okay. And I walked up to the edge of that cliff with absolute fear. And when we have a fear response, for me, for everyone, it can be fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And for me, it's freeze. So when I freeze, it means that I go back to baby brain, and all that happens for me is I'm thinking I need to pee, I feel sick, I need to vomit, I need to go to sleep. I can't think. So that's what happens for me when I have my anxiety or fear response. And so I'm standing on the edge of the cliff with my instructor, and this fear is just going. It's not letting me think. It's not letting me use any of my usual techniques. I do a lot of yoga and Pilates, and through that, I've taught myself a lot of breath control. And that can usually help me calm those nerves. But when I am in that state of freeze from complete fear, I can't think to do that. So I'm standing there trying to control this wing on land, and all of a sudden my instructor just goes, "No, let's drop the wing." And he goes, "Em, we need to breathe. Close your eyes. Let's breathe. Let's breathe this through." And in my head, I'm thinking, after the fact, I'm thinking, I know how to breathe. I know how to control and regulate myself. But in that moment, I couldn't do a thing. So I
think it's even funny. It's funny because even your words there, like, I know how to breathe, I can control. And it's like, that was kind of like almost missing the mark right there as well, right?
Yes, exactly that, Em. You're spot on. Exactly missing the mark. And so I was able, he helped me calm my heart rate down. So through breath, that's one of the only ways we can control our heart rate. And I slowly lowered it. And then I turn around. Everything was great. I run. He's like, run. Everyone's cheering. Go, go, go. I get off the edge, and then my radio drops, and I can't hear a thing. I can't hear the instructions. I can't hear where to go. And I'm in the air, already scared out of my brains. I start bawling my eyes out. Tears. I'm screaming. I'm looking over at the land with the crew. I'm going, I can't hear you. I'm screaming, F, F, F. I can't hear you. And then the craziest thing happened, and this, I'm still battling with it to today. A part of me came out that I've never experienced before, and it was like a footy coach. It came in. I don't even watch football, but I'm pretty sure I was a football coach for a moment. It came in and said, Em, you idiot, you need to stop. You need to calm. You need to love yourself in this moment, and you need to take control of this wing. You can do it. You know the theory. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Oh, I have just got, oh my God, my eyes have just got watery.
Yeah.
And I've just got full body goosebumps. And I don't know why, but I think, and sorry to cut you off, but I think there's so much that you've said already that's like, oh my God, like you've always had your own back. So yeah. I think it's really cool what you said about the breath work. And I know I had a similar experience because I'm also control force. So for me, it's fight. I'm going to go into fight because I am built. I've got that grit. I will get my way out of anything when I have to. And I kind of love that part of me, but it also is very masculine. And it's very like, that's not how you have to always do things, right? I'll fight with a shit ton of tears. So it's a really weird mix because it doesn't look strong. It's just like, what is even going on? Yeah. But I was also told to smile, you know, like, yes. And for me, a big part of me is like finding the joy of life, being enthusiastic, having like childlike wonder. So when I look at my human design, they're big parts of me that I shut down for the longest time because as you grow up, you're like, you know, Peter Pan goes away and you like got to become this adult. But the more I'm realizing I don't want to be an adult in that way and I don't have to be. And so when he said, breathe and smile, as soon as I smiled, I was like, oh, that's why I'm doing this. I'm like just excited to try something new. But for you, I just find there's two things. The thing that gave me the spidey senses is your spidey senses. So when you said it like something came over you that hadn't clicked in before, I kind of wonder your intuition being a projector, which you've only just like seen your chart, right? So you don't probably fully understand. Yeah. But you as a projector, your authority is your spleen. And it is literally like the hub of health and wellness and safety. So in that moment, and as I said it, I just got goosebumps again. Yeah. This is really weird for me because I don't get goosebumps like this all the time. I'm like, oh, this is juicy. It's fun.
It's juicy.
It's so good. But it's intuition. So it's a knowing, but it's really subtle. And it's possibly something if you have always had to know the reasons why everything happens, you've probably been in your mind for a really, really long time and not listened to it. And in that moment, you kind of didn't have a choice because this was gone. And so all of a sudden, this became like, because it's usually like a whisper. Oh my God, I'm still getting goosebumps. What the hell? So it's like a whisper that's then just turned into this like, all right, I have to keep you safe because it's one of your big, like you don't have a lot of definition in your chart, but this is like it's a safety, it's a health, it's everything. So it's like kicked in for you. And I think that's freaking fantastic. And then the other part, and then I'm going to get you to go back on and continue your story, but so that I don't forget, is the reason that you went in and did it, I think is super cool as well. So like it was sort of a similar reason for me. We both have line 4s in our profile. It's about connection and relationships with other people. Yeah. And so the way we navigate life is through those connections, and the quality of those connections and relationships is what fuels and fills us up. So that became stronger than anything else. And then you've probably realized how much you've gained from just that experience, not only with your dad and your sister, but well, I mean, look, we've connected and that's pretty damn great. You know, like there's so many different things from that. So I just think it's really cool that you listened to that and did that as well. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
I totally agree. And you're so spot on. It was that thing that it was that intuition, and it was that feeling that I guess I hadn't let come out before. I hadn't let myself experience that part of me, and letting myself be in such a vulnerable state in the air, doing something that I was so fearful of. It came out, and my tears, it was so weird. My tears were from absolute fear. And then it turned to like excitement of I'm controlling this thing. This is happening. And then once I landed, it was like this huge burst of absolute joy of I just lived. I just did that. And then after the fact, I started realizing I just discovered a new part of me that I can untap and apply to every other part of my life. And I'd never experienced that before. And it gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
Yes.
Absolute
It's so
goosebumps.
good.
It's so transformative.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And it's, you know, you feel like you want to just say, everyone go step off a cliff, because honestly, you can't fully understand it till you do it. And there's so many areas of your life where you can step through stuff like this. But for me, it was very similar, but also different. I had every intention to fly, and mine came from like, why am I so okay with letting somebody else control me in the sky? Like people I don't know, I've never met, and I'm like, yeah, sure, go fly me off the cliff. I'm completely okay with that. I've just relinquished my power, and you do you. And I thought, I sort of left that situation, and while I was so lit up by it, I was like, this feeling of flying, you know, when you want a superpower as a kid, for me, it was flying. It was seeing the world from that perspective. That's what I wanted to have. And so I did that, and I got that feeling. I was like, oh, this is so weightless. It's just, it's in tune with nature. And that's something that's been coming up for me a lot more as well, which I think we can touch back on. But I was like, I want that trust for myself.
Yes.
How do I get that trust? The only way I get that trust for myself is to step through the fear, like you did, that anxiety, the control piece, and go and do it myself. And so I started to, and like you said, that playing with the wing on the ground, I love it now. I hated it. I preferred stepping off and flying than ground handling, because my frustrations over the fact that it wasn't perfect, I was trying to control it all. You know, it's like you do have to control it in the sky. You absolutely do, but it's you surrender a little bit more once you're in the sky. But on the ground, I felt like my mind can take over way more. It's like, I need to be good at this. I want to be the best. I need to prove that. And I could see all of that come up, which is, I think, also what I loved about it, because it just reflected everything to me of like, where are you trying to trick yourself? Where are you trying to hide parts of you? Where do you not game to show up? And it was that same thing of like, okay, Emily, this wing, you just need to dance with it. And I still play that in my head. And that is something that I now take away. I'm like, everything in my life is more of a dance now.
Yes.
Smile and dance. And I'm like, my life is better.
Yep, absolutely. Honestly, I have that exact same feeling that life has become a dance. I was a dancer as a kid, so I guess that's how I do look at things in general. But since that paragliding course, taking that thing that you're so fearful of and that thing that you have no control of and dancing with it and taking that into the other areas of your life is such a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I think you just tapped on something super awesome as well, Em, about, you know, everyone should try jumping off a cliff with a wing. I think that I agree with you, but what I would say and add to that is that if you have no meaning and if you have no purpose behind it, if you can't connect with the meaning of why you were wanting to walk off that cliff, then you will not get the same experience. So for me, jumping out of oh, sorry, go.
No, I know I'm interrupting, but do you think maybe, I don't know, do you think maybe even if they went into it without that, they wouldn't help but have to confront that? Maybe?
Well, like, yeah, absolutely. If they do have a fear as well, a fear of heights, then confronting that will pull up something for them. And I guess it's that aspect of being able to reflect on that journey that then goes, I can now see why I've grown from that and why I've learned from that. Because you could do that absolutely and face that fear and land and live and get that sense of, oh, I did that. I can tell my friends, and we're sort of sufficing that ego side of ourselves. But unless we actually merge that into a transformative learning of going, how did I just change who I am? How did this change who I am for the rest of my life? How does this impact on my values and how I show up in the world? And I think having that ability to apply a framework of reflection to those situations is the way, as you know so well, Em, is the way that we've come through that and gone, Oh my gosh. I can now go into situations where I'm completely afraid. For me specifically, I'm afraid of public speaking. So being on camera today even was super, super challenging. However, I've put so much thought into, okay, what's the meaning behind me doing this? Is it worth it to show up and potentially embarrass myself and look like an idiot and use all of the wrong words for the hope but the hope is that hopefully I will leave one nice thing for one person or do something of value. And finding that meaning for me means, yep, I'm coming on camera. I'm doing it. I'm going to face that fear and overcome it. So that's kind of how I've taken what I learned and put it into all the other areas of my life to sort of be here today, which is kind of cool.
It's so cool. And there's so many other parts of that that's really cool. And so I'm going to go to your human design again. And people are probably so sick of me going to like, oh, guess what? This is in there.
No, it's
but you
good.
have
it's
one.
Really
You have one fully defined channel in your human design, and it's the 1156 channel. So your channel is like your energies that go between your gates. So I'm just going to keep it at that. And it's literally life is about the journey, not the destination, right? And so for you, I think that's really a lot of it. Then it comes into your 4-6 profile as well. Like you're here to share things with everybody else, and it is trial and error in the first stages of your life. So like 1 to 30, it's really just trying things on and like going up and down and like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then you get to sort of 30-ish. It depends. It's with your Saturn return. So you'll get to like that age, and then it's like, things start to click and you get this new phase, but then it's like self-reflection and it's going within and it's like pulling in these resources of like what's going to take me to the next phase. And I feel like that's kind of where you're at. I'm like seeing it through your posts. I'm seeing it in the way you speak. You're like, and that's kind of where you find your life partner, and you're getting yourself foundationally set up for like, where is my voice? Because you're a 6, so you're an authority, you're a role model. Like whether you like to think that or not, you are. That is what you are going to be, and you're here to help others. You're a 4-6, so you're a transpersonal karma. You are here to help others, and you are doing it. You did it for me just in one post and one caption, right? So like these are the things that are coming out to you. But then sort of around the age of 50, which I mean, I'm turning 40 this year, so sometimes when you say 50 and you're younger than me, it feels like forever away, and you're like, why do I have to do this for so long? But if you keep looking at life as a journey and taking the lessons in the challenges, which is what I'm kind of referring back to, at 50 you're like, here I am, here's my voice, I'm the role model. And not in a and I'm going to use ego because ego can be used in a lot of different contexts, but not in that. It's just like, I'm here to show you all of my ideas, how I pull everything apart, and then you're supposed to just show up from those experiences and lead. And I think just kind of with everything you said there, that's literally what you're doing. And I think if people don't
goosebumps. on.
Yay.
Wow.
I just think, and I think it's also really funny because you use the word hope. And if we go back to even our motivation, so your motivation is fear, which it's not because you're scared, it's because, but we can think about how both of us almost flew off the cliff, right? So my motivation is actually hope. So it's about surrendering. Your motivation is fear, which is about having the fundamental knowledge about how everything works to its root, and that keeps you safe. So it's almost, and that's not a bad thing. It's that can be wide into your life, but you're also then reflecting to make sure you've scooped up all of that knowledge, and that's your motivation then to push through to the next thing. Yeah. And for me, it's that hope, it's that surrender. So you asked me, did I sleep the night before? My hardest part of that was saying no to my friends because I don't like to let people down. And not go to Bali and actually stay and do the course, even though my intuition was like, do this. That was my big thing because I wanted to be in this situation. I knew it would light me up. I knew these were the type of people I wanted to be around. I still wanted to be with my friends in Bali, but this was that next adventure. I need to be starting new things and trying new adventures. So that was like the hardest part for me. So I didn't sleep all the night before the course. When it came to flying, it's almost like the excitement and the hope of the next phase of Emily was going to be born. And I can't even explain it because I had no idea what stepping off was going to look like. Yeah. So I was fearful, but I wasn't. It's like any form of logic actually went out the window for me in a good way. And I was like, I can't die. And that might sound really bad. It might actually, it's not that I went into it stupid or naive to the fact that anything could happen here. It was just like, yeah, it just changed for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Absolutely. And using the word die, like, absolutely. I think that goes to a lot of our heads. It was in my head. I can't die. I don't want to die. And that hope that you had, as much as I guess the hardest part for me was coming over my fear, that hope for me was, I hope that this works, that I can continue connecting with my family. So I totally appreciate that hope ends up being the thing in the end that, you know, bridges that gap of us not being able to do something and us being able to do something. So that's a great way to look at it.
And I think if you do come from your heart a lot, again, something that I've probably shut down a lot in the past, but if you are coming back to that a heart space, a more heart-led approach to something, you know, we've kind of been conditioned for a really long time to use our head. But I would assume with everything you've been studying, and then even into the Pilates, where you've really got to come back to center when you're doing things. I could be wrong. I'm not great at Pilates.
No,
I'm contemplating purchasing a reformer and like getting you to give me a few Zoom classes. So I will chat about that. Like, yeah. Okay, cool.
It's done.
Yay. Because, you know, like, even on that, you know, I'm a gym junkie. I like going to the gym, and it's just because now it's like I have this change where I feel like I just want to come a little bit more centered, and I can't even fully explain that. But I think when you come back to that space and then you reflect, there is more hope, because it becomes a little bit more of a surrender into, as we said, life is a journey. It's not the destination. And then you're taking the lessons at each part.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly that, Em. And taking the lessons away from, us stepping out and facing that fear and doing something that we didn't think we might do is, there's so many lessons to take from that. So many.
And it's not easy. It's never easy, because I know something that you and I also have in common. So you love to skateboard.
Yes, I love it.
And
not very good, but I love it.
I'm not very good at all, but I love that you wear your bright, what do you call it? Like your guards. I'm like, I'm not even, so this is where I'm kind of going to go with it. That judgment of self. Like I don't even put that on, because I'm like, no, because I'm just going to stay safe, and I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
God, I'm so inspired by you to like, I just wish you lived closer. I would come down and do the skateboarding stuff you did. And I love, like, I'm sort of very similar. I just want to try all of the fun things, the surfing, the kite surfing. Those things and being outside really light me up.
Yeah.
But something that I think you would be good to talk into is that judgment of self that stops us going and having the fun and doing the life that we actually know, again, in our hearts, that's like, there's more to this than just playing safe and just having this beautiful seen on paper, picture perfect life that feels empty as shit.
Exactly that. And that's right. We have to come to a place. And I guess for me, trying all of these sports, honestly, I fall, I stack, I look like a kook. And I actually chose the brightest elbow pads that I could, specifically for that reason, because I'm so nervous about looking like an idiot all the time. I'm constantly judging myself. I'm constantly thinking, what are people thinking of me? I've said the wrong thing. I shouldn't have done that. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to get the brightest elbow pads so everyone knows I'm a beginner, and I'm going to try and rock it. Because I was able to leap off that frigging cliff. I'm going to try and rock this now and see how far it can take me. There's the football coach coming back in.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's the same. It's an experiment, right? I put a quote up, I think it was just yesterday, and I hadn't actually viewed it like that before. So that whole imposter syndrome thing.
Yes.
You know, don't be afraid of when that comes up, because when that's showing up, it's like, oh, you're just teetering on the edge of like pushing through and breaking through into something to see what's new. It's not that it's your stopping space. It's not like you're not able to do this.
Yeah.
It's actually like, this is your push through moment.
It is.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is. It is. It's your push through moment. And from that, we get to experience things like greater connections to ourselves, greater connections to others, greater connections to nature, as we both experienced in paragliding. And I think being able to enhance our connections in all those realms are just the most important thing. And the way to do that is to be able to try something new that we haven't done before, push ourselves out of that comfort zone. And that's what skating does for me. Concrete is scary. It is like bone breaking.
And why? Like, to me, it's actually more scary than flying in the sky. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even though there's a massive distance down, I'm like, it's nature. Nature's
Yeah.
soft. I mean, it's not. I mean, water's like one of the strongest things
Yes.
there is. But
Yes.
in my mind, going along the concrete and like falling on my tailbone or breaking a hand so I can't work, it's so, I don't know why. I'm like, oh, die or break a wrist. Oh, breaking a wrist feels worse because it just feels more imminent.
Yes.
And I don't actually know the reason for that. But I love what you said about having to like push out of your comfort zone, and like you specifically chose to put on the bright stuff. Yeah. It's no different to me doing this podcast. And I even said to you when you first came on, right? Every time I hop on here, I don't know if I'm going to speak to you properly. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep the conversation going. I don't know how much judgment's coming back at me on the other side of the stuff that I talk about. The same with my social media, but it's all an experiment because I need to learn to love me that much more and experiment with who I am and be okay with the changes. So as I change, I have to show up changed and then like be like, well, it's okay to change because there's those parts of me that I haven't accepted yet. So by doing it and actually really pushing through, people will say, oh, you're brave, you're this, you're that. But it's all of that. There's a lot behind that always.
Yeah. Always. It's a massive process that you've had to go through to get to this stage. And that's the hidden behind the scenes thing that people don't see. They see this face, you're just so confident, you are beaming with energy. But people can't see that before this, you probably have to spend, well, for me specifically, spend ages preparing yourself for coming on and getting through that process of, I am so uncomfortable. I feel so uncomfortable. How can I sit with this and be okay with being uncomfortable? And learning that is like a crazy skill. It's like a trick book.
But then you realize the energy that's coming out is so much more authentic. So you can see the lit upness in people almost through that fear because it creates this excitement.
It does.
You know, it's so different. And I've talked about it before, but when I first sat around, I think I hadn't started paragliding yet. It was just a tandem. So people have probably heard this story like 4 times, but I feel like they really need to get it through their heads.
Good, let's hear it again.
So let's just drive that nail home. I remember did the tandem, Rainbow Beach, fly down, go to the pub.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And they were sitting around and I was expecting what I'm used to at a pub, and the football finals were on. So I was like, this is what's going to happen. You know, they'll all be talking about the football. And everyone in the pub was yelling at the TV screen. Yeah. And this group of people that I was sitting with were talking about all life's experiences, how they've overcome these challenges, what they love, connection, where they've traveled to. And I just sat there. I almost get teary thinking about it because I'm like, oh, I found more people like me, or the people, or who I want to be more like. But I didn't allow that out because the people I was around were watching TV and screaming at the football. And I was like, there's more to life than this. I don't resonate with it. And then these people, I'm like, this is amazing, you know, and but I had to put myself out of my comfort zone. I had to ask the first question to be like, hey, can I go do that? I had to put myself out there. And then the invitation came to do the next thing because you're more aligned to who you are. So those synchronicities start coming in.
Yes, exactly that. They really do, don't they? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed, like, I don't know the Emily before. Who was the Emily before? and when did she start to leave? You know?
So the evolving Emily probably before I met my husband 9 years ago, and throughout that process has been quite a transformative journey for me. But before that, I had so much social anxiety and so much anxiety about who I was that I found it really hard to connect with people. And it's funny because that's my biggest value now. I do anything to connect with people. And I think it comes from that place of me having an absolute inability to do so, because in every conversation, I judged myself so harshly on everything I said that I found it hard to be in social settings. I was really agreeable. So people said things like, oh, do you know this band? I used to say, oh, yeah, I know that band. Because I was so embarrassed to say, I don't know that, Ben. Can you tell me? So now my another trick in my trick book that I learned is that I ask, what do you mean? On every single chance that I get, what do you mean? What are you saying? What do you mean by that? And that transformative journey and that in itself has been so helpful, because now I just get to constantly learn and connect, which is awesome. So prior Emily, just riddled with anxiety, and I guess it's doing those few things like learning. Studying is not a thing that you have to do. Studying doesn't make you a better person than anybody else. It does not. And I never thought that studying was going to be something that I was going to do. I thought that it was for people that were super, super smart and could read a whole book. I couldn't read a book. I'd never read a book. Maybe in primary school I'd read a book. And my husband over time, I guess, helped me see my worth and helped me see that I can do things that I'm so afraid of, like reading a book. And through that process of opening up a book every night with him, for example, and reading him a page, and I'd read a page, and I kid you not, every time I would read a page, my anxiety went through the roof. Almost every second word I had to stop and go, I'm really embarrassed, but I don't know what that means.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't love all of that more. I'm like, I want to cry because firstly, don't. Don't.
Sorry, Em.
No, oh man. This is why I keep my tissues here. I think it's every episode I need a tissue.
Yeah.
I think because there's so many things in that's brought up, and I think this is what's so cool about being vulnerable and sharing this stuff. Firstly, I want a person like that. I want to find my person like that who can just see all of those parts and be like, I got you, and I'm going to keep you safe, because that allowed you to keep being vulnerable.
It did.
Instead of hiding the bits away.
Yeah.
Because I very much did that because I didn't, and part of that's on me, right? You can't blame everyone else all the time. You do your own work. But I never felt safe to be seen in the things that I wanted to be seen and to step into that. And one of the things, I think you even sent it to me in a voice message, was about that being okay not to know. And I think we were talking about alcohol maybe.
Yeah.
And that social anxiety. I think I remember that because it really resonated with me, because I definitely did it a lot, where I'd be like, oh yeah. And I would just hope the conversation would move on, because something for me is always like, I'm not smart.
Yes.
Like mentally smart. But I know I've got street smarts. I know that I have my gifts, but I'm only just starting to be okay with them that way. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, thank you for sharing that with me, because that was me too.
Yeah.
You know? And so so sharing that, and then now same thing. Even last night I was sending some voice notes to a friend, and it's funny because you just become aware of the places that you do change. And they said something and I was like, oh, I don't understand. So I was like, hi, can you like put that in a different context so that I can understand what you mean? And it was received well, and they sent it back, and I was like, oh, cool, that's clearer. And then I could relate to it. And I was like, oh, why was that ever so hard?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. And if somebody asks us like, oh, could you rephrase that, or I'm not sure what you mean, to us, it's like, oh yeah, absolutely I can. I can't believe I've said that in that sort of, like, of course I want to teach you. Of course I want to share that with you. So it's funny that we have that I guess core belief that we're not smart and that we are not good enough to show up in that space. And now changing that core belief to something else. We are okay. And if we don't know everything, then that's absolutely okay. Just shifting that core belief, which is, I think, what we've both done, and we're both on that journey. It's just really empowering. It's so empowering to know that we're okay to just be who we are.
And I think it's like, for me, like I've got an interpersonal karma. So it's about learning about me. Yeah. And by me learning all the parts of me, it allows other people to be okay to learn their parts of them, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And just knowing that almost took the pressure off, because I'm like, I just get to be me. I just get to be human, and I get to explore all the little parts of my humanness and like have a look at that little bit, and maybe I don't like it. Okay, why don't I like it?
Yeah.
Because I've got a belief around something. Okay, do I need to move that, or can it just be what it is, and then go explore another part?
That's
you know? And that's what's really fun as well. I think everyone's just starting to realize, and I'm noticing a big shift, which I really love. of watching
Yay.
people start to, not just for me, but for the collective of like,
Yeah.
people are doing this, right? And the more you start to show up in that way, those people come around you. And I say it all the time, so I feel like I just repeat myself, but it truly is true. You realize actually how cool the world is, how kind it is, how much goodness there is. And like you said, you know, you become less of like, I don't know all of the things, I'm not smart enough, or I'm a burden. A burden was the other one. And that came up just with what you said, because if someone said to me, can you help me? Can you share this with me? Yeah, too easy. I'll go do it. But then I think, oh, I don't want to bother the other person and ask the same of them. But like, why? Dump some shit on me, because then I feel like I'm doing something for you. So it kind of is, yeah, so bizarre.
It is so bizarre the way that we work as humans, isn't it?
So nuts.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your transition from, so you're a counselling therapist and a Pilates instructor.
Yes.
And you're loving being a Pilates instructor, and you seem to travel a lot as well.
Yes, we do travel a lot, yeah.
I'm very envious of all of it. I'm not going to lie.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what are you loving about being a counselling therapist and being a Pilates instructor?
So, well, to start with,
what took you into that?
Yeah. Well, what got me into counseling therapy was purely because I wanted to learn about how I exist, who I am, how can I be better at talking to people, interacting in general. So my lead into counseling was purely personal and relational. How can I connect more with my partner? How can I love him more? How can I be more connected with my family? So that's literally what led me in to counseling therapy, which is amazing. So I only just graduated, which is super exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's a long 3 years, but a very good transformative 3 years. So I haven't started working in that area just yet, but the Pilates stuff. So the reason
Are you sure? Anyway, continue.
Well, yeah, maybe. But the Pilates stuff was actually, I've always had a love for fitness. I did a PT course about 12 years ago, and I didn't carry through with it because I had, once again, too much anxiety around not being able to offer what people want. So I didn't do it. So I literally did not work in the area because of that fear. And so getting into Pilates this time was a mixture of that, so me wanting to overcome that fear, but also me wanting to find and have experience in, and this might sound lame, but just in literally connecting with a whole group of people and imparting maybe one small bit of how to breathe, how to connect with your inner self, how to take this 1 hour and make this 1 hour the time that you give to yourself to love you for the moment, like you are able to love and give yourself to everybody else. So if I could create that one space for people for 1 hour a week, that to me is like the biggest win. And it's kind of like a stepping stone. So once I can get comfortable in this setting, then maybe I'll be much more comfortable in the counseling setting as well. So it's really like a stepping stone. However, it's something that I'm going to continue doing forever. I love it. I get so much out of it. Such a good way to contribute and connect, which are my two biggest values. So I'm ticking both boxes.
You are, and it's super cool. I love what you said, because I wonder if it comes from like being the projector, in that you have started to realize. So if you think about a projector, I think, because you run marathons. Do you run marathons or just your husband?
Yes, we both do triathlons.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I guess with an analogy like that, right? So as a projector, you have probably in the past been conditioned that life should be like running a triathlon. Like it's just go, running, like keep going, keep up with everybody else. If I'm not, I'm falling behind.
Yes.
But for a projector, you should be doing more Pilates and yoga.
Yes.
It should just be that connecting, really honing and refining your body and your vessel and your mind. And once you have all of that key, then your light shines out over everybody else, because you can see what everybody else should be doing. You can literally see it, and it's really annoying because you want to tell people how to do all the things because it's so simple for you now. It's like, I can see where you're going wrong. Like, let's just pivot here and just do this. But you have to wait for the invitation, which can sometimes sound really annoying for a projector. Yeah. And what I'll say with that really quickly is it doesn't mean you sit idle. So you're doing exactly, you're creating all of these parts of you. So then people are going to come to you for your expertise, and then they will say something, and then there will be that invitation just naturally based on the fact that you're calling in the right people. It can also be energetic in the sense that, I guess, like us. So we connected through socials, and then you still sent me a message of like, hey, I was thinking about. So yes. Technically that wouldn't be waiting for the invitation, but because we had already spoken and you felt that there was something there, that energy was the invitation of probably your spleen going, I need to respond to that. Logically, I don't understand why, but that is my invitation to go do the thing. Yeah. So I think that's really cool. But what you've done is I think you've realized that time for you, so connection is important, which I'm going to quickly talk about your purpose, which is so funny because you're literally spot on target.
Yeah, wow.
But you've realized that you need to craft time for you and that you are important. And so going a bit slower is important.
Yes.
And so then, because that's then become one of your values, that is what you're sharing with others. And so being part of the projector is like able to, create that space. And I think within that is counseling and therapy anyway. But so I want to see. I want to see something. This is so your incarnation cross is a mix of your conscious sun, conscious earth, unconscious sun, and unconscious earth, which is your first 4 planets at the top of that chart that you got.
Okay. Right?
Yes. So these are 4 gates, and each of them have meanings, and it's sort of like what you're here to do, and then the stability that will allow that. And then the shadow that you have to work through to achieve that. Okay. And then the stability of the shadow to achieve that. So the things that might come up that keep pulling you like backwards. So as a quick example, your conscious sun, so the thing, your personality sun, the thing that you might possibly be a bit more aware of is that you have gate 11. It's all these ideas. So all these ideas, and that's okay. Like you're supposed to bring all of these ideas and have experiences with them, but it's okay not to do them all. But your unconscious sun is friction. So the underlying thing there for you is to kind of overcome this friction piece of like realizing that through friction, which if we think about everything that we have just spoken about, comes growth. Yeah. But if you're in the shadow version of that, so like a not self, like a crappy state, yes, you're literally seeing friction, and then you're volatile and you're emotional and you're irrational in it. And that can play out if you're not aligned. So that kind of that's how they kind of work together, just to give you a little snapshot. And those 4 create this incarnation cross of like an overview of what you're here to do. And that doesn't mean, that's not to box you, right? Because it can go across so many things and you're still you. Just because I've said all of this, it doesn't mean that you're not you, but I think sometimes it just gives you a little bit of like I can feel a bit calmer knowing that I was made this way, and now I'm actually stepping into that. Yeah. So for you, it's called the Right Angle Cross of Eden, and I'm going to read it so I don't kind of butcher it. And I haven't written it all down because it doesn't need to be all of it, but it's literally creating a little piece of Eden for those around you. Oh. Now, think about literally your Pilates just off the top, but it's about the ability to manage emotional conflicts, grow through crisis, and come up with creative solutions, and then be able to communicate that to people with caution so that they can understand it.
Yeah, wow.
And I feel like that literally just wrapped up the entire podcast and everything you have said, and you didn't know that, and you didn't know I was going to tell you that. No, I think that's freaking hilarious.
And that literally wraps up everything. That is everything we've talked about in a nutshell, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Super cool.
That is super cool. Wow. How cool. I like that. That's very, very good.
Yeah, it's so good. I really love what you're doing. I love how you're showing up for you, because you're doing that, and I know you I think fundamentally you're doing it, that you're inspiring others, but sometimes it's nice to be told that. So I want to tell you that
thank you.
You are.
You am, and same back at you. So
thank you. I want to thank you for your time today. I think people will have loved this conversation, and I want to invite you, if there's something else you want to share it before we hop off.
Thanks, Em. I hadn't really thought about the last thing that I wanted to share, but I think probably the biggest thing to take away is if you can do something that is going to bring further connection with somebody else or with others, and you're fearful about that, like starting skating, for example, I highly recommend you give it a go. I have a few mothers, I'm running that Skate Like a Girl down here, and I have a few mothers that are so fearful of skating, but their kids skate, and they're coming along purely so that they get the opportunity to learn how to skate with their kids. And watching that unfold, and watching that mother get that first trick or take her foot off the ground and hold her feet on the board while her kids are skating around is like the craziest thing to watch. It is so magical. So I definitely invite anybody out there listening to please do anything that you can that will bring you closer to other people, because in the end, connection is literally all we have. Connection is all we have. And finding meaning in what we do is all we have. And we have a whole lot more than that, obviously, but deep down, they're the things that matter, connecting with others. So that's my biggest takeaway from everything I've done in my life is how can I connect more? So yeah.
Yay. Yes. Agree. We will put everything in the show notes for people to find you, but would you like to tell them where they can find you just before we hop off as well?
Yeah, so probably just my Instagram, which is Pilates with Emily Marie. And we can pop that in the show notes. And you can contact me, through there if you have any questions or just want to chat in general. It'd be super cool.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat. And I need to find my way down there to actually meet you in person.
That would be amazing, Em. And please reach out for our Pilates session online. I really look forward to that.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It
is on. And thank you so much, Em. The last thing that I want to say is that you have also been super inspiring for me. So as much as you put out there that, other people inspire you to be who you are and have contributed to make you who you are to at today, you are such an inspiration. Seeing you get up here and facing your fears and sharing all of your knowledge is so, so beautiful and empowering for us. So thank you.
Aww. I'm going to hop off before I cry. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Em. Lovely.
Bye.